you were warned about him. The traveler who laughed, the one who came with a camera on his chest, a notebook in his coat, and certainty in his eyes. He called himself a debunker. He called the elders superstitious. He called the Mawphlang stones a tourist trick. He had no idea that stones don't care what you call them. His name was Daniel. And this is where his story ends. Daniel had been traveling for 11 months. He had visited 17 countries, debunked 12 so-called cursed locations, and posted every single one of them to an audience of 300,000 people who followed him for exactly that, the thrill of watching someone walk into the dark and walk back out laughing. He was from a small city in England, Bristol, a place of fog and bridges and pubs where ghost tours were sold like postcards. He'd grown up rolling his eyes at those tours. He was the kid who pressed his face against the glass of haunted houses not out of fear but out of curiosity, out of the need to prove that fear was just a story people hadn't examined closely enough. That was his whole brand. Daniel goes there. And he always came back. He'd heard about the Mawphlang from a forum thread. Someone had posted a blurry photograph of the stones at dusk, with a caption that read, "Do not go here." I am not joking. Hundreds of comments, half of them mocking, half of them not. Daniel screenshotted it immediately. This was exactly what he lived for. He arrived in the Meghalaya hills on a Tuesday morning in October. The air smelled like wet pine and something older, something he couldn't name. He told his audience it smelled like camping and drama. They loved that. He hired a local guide, a quiet man named Mawphlang, who agreed to take him to the edge of the forest, but made it clear, very gently, very firmly, that he would not go further. Daniel filmed that exchange too. He zoomed in on the old man's hands while he spoke. They were trembling slightly, though the morning wasn't cold. "He's really committed to the bit," Daniel whispered to his camera with a grin. Mawphlang heard him. He said nothing. He simply pointed toward the tree line, handed Daniel a folded piece of paper with a path marked on it, and said only this, "Don't make them hear you laugh." Daniel laughed, of course. Loud and easy, the laugh of a man who has never been truly afraid. He walked into the trees. Mawphlang stood at the road for a long time after, watching, waiting, already grieving. What he didn't film was the moment the birds went quiet. He didn't notice it consciously. But somewhere in the footage, if you listen carefully, you can hear it the exact second the forest stopped, mid-chirp, mid-wind, as if someone had pressed a thumb over the wolf's throat. Daniel pocketed his granola bar wrapper, picked up his camera, and turned to walk back. The path was gone. The path was clear at first, wide and muddy and obvious, the kind of trail that said, "People come here, people live here, this is safe." Daniel narrated as he walked the quality of the light filtering through the canopy, the unusual silence, the way the ground was soft as pressed bread beneath his boots. He reached the Mawphlang stones in 20 minutes. There were 7 of them, arranged in no pattern that a Western eye could easily name. Tall, grey, mossy at the base. "They looked," he said to his camera, "like someone's abandoned chess pieces," and he laughed again. He walked between them. He ran his hands along their surfaces. He pressed his ear against one and said, "Yep, stone." He spelled out the name Mawphynna in a slow, theatrical voice and waited dramatically for something to happen. Nothing did. He spent 40 minutes at the stones. He filmed everything. He touched everything. At one point, he sat on the base of the tallest stone and ate a granola bar, kicking his feet like a child on a wall. He was pleased with the content. It was exactly the kind of casual disrespect his audience rewarded with clicks. Not overgrown, not obscured, gone. As if the trees had simply closed ranks while his back was turned, the way water fills the shape of a stone the moment you lift it. He wasn't worried, not yet. He had GPS. He pulled out his phone. Good signal, he noted, relieved, and pulled up the map. The trail was right there, a dotted blue line, and he was a blinking dot, and the road was less than a kilometer away. He walked in the direction the map told him. For 10 minutes, he walked, and then he stopped, because he was standing in front of the stones again. Same 7, same grey, same moss at the base. He laughed shorter this time, a breath more than a sound. He'd simply gotten turned around. Easy mistake. Dark canopy, he told his camera. Disorienting. Happens to everyone. He turned and walked the opposite direction. 10 minutes. 15. The trees thinned ahead, and he felt the relief in his chest like a cool drink. He stepped into the clearing. 7 stones. 7 shadows. The tallest one at the center. The same granola bar wrapper he'd dropped was still at its base, crumpled exactly as he'd left it. He stood very still for the first time since he'd entered the forest. "Okay," he said quietly, to no one, to the camera, to himself. "Okay." He tried 4 more times, 4 different directions. Each time, after 10 or 15 minutes of walking, sometimes more, once nearly 30, the trees parted to reveal the same arrangement of stones. The same pale light, the same silence that felt less like absence and more like attention. On the 5th attempt, he began to run. He ran hard, crashing through low branches, his camera swinging wildly on its strap, his breath ragged and loud in the hush. He ran until the ground disappeared beneath him, a ridge he hadn't seen, a drop hidden by leaf cover, and he went down hard, rolling and tumbling through fern and stone and mud until he hit the base of a tree trunk with enough force to knock the air from his lungs. He lay there a long time, staring up through the branches at a sky that had gone grey. His right ankle dropped. His palms were torn. His camera was cracked across the lens, but still recording, the little red light still blinking, patient as a heartbeat. He looked at the footage later, what survived of it. In those minutes lying on the ground, gasping, you can hear something, faint, rhythmic, like breathing that isn't his. Like something nearby, unhurried, simply watching him rest. When he finally sat up, he looked at his hands. The scrapes on his palms were already darkening in a strange way. Not the red of broken skin, but a deeper color, almost grey, at the very edges. He told himself it was mud. He told himself a lot of things in those minutes. He picked himself up and walked. He came back to the stones. It was getting dark by then. The sky above the canopy had gone from grey to the deep bruised purple of a hill evening, and the cold had moved in from somewhere higher up, the kind of cold that has patience in it, that is willing to wait you out. Daniel sat down on the ground in front of the tallest stone, not defiantly this time, not casually. He sat the way a man sits when his legs have made a decision before his pride does. He thought about Bristol. Funny, that. He hadn't thought about home in months, not really. Not the specific texture of it, the particular smell of rain on Clifton cobblestones, the sound of his mother calling him down to dinner from another floor of the house. He hadn't been home in almost a year. He told his audience that travel was his home now. He'd believed it. He thought about the last time he'd spoken to his mother. 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. A short call. He'd been in a good signal spot and she'd sounded tired. And he'd kept it brief because he had a video to edit. He'd said he'd call back soon. He thought about the way she always said be careful at the end of every call, in the tone of someone who knows the warning won't help but cannot stop themselves from offering it. He had never, not once, said I will. The grey at the edges of his palm scrapes had spread past the cuts, now past the torn skin. Moving slowly, the way frost moves across glass, beautiful if you don't know what it means. He understood then, not all at once. The way you understand something in a dream, you simply know without needing it explained. He understood that Bah Kinmao had not been afraid for himself. The old man knew the stones. He'd grown up in their shadow. He knew their rules the way you know the rules of weather, not with fear, but with respect, with the quiet acceptance that some forces are larger than argument. He understood that the forum posts "do not go here, I am not joking" had not been performance, that the trembling in the old man's hands had not been theater. He understood that he had come all this way, thousands of miles, across oceans and time zones and mountain roads, a whole year of going places and coming back laughing. He had come all this way to die in a forest he didn't know, in hills he'd mispronounced, for an audience that would wonder what had happened to him and eventually move on. He had come all this way to prove that nothing was real, and found the one thing that was. "I should have listened," he said, out loud, to the stone. It was the truest sentence he had spoken in months. The tallest stone said nothing, but in the footage, that cracked, red light blinking footage, you can see something shift in the grain of it, in the texture of the air around the base of the stone. Something that wasn't there before, something patient, something that had been waiting for exactly those words, not as a kindness, but as confirmation that the dead was understood. The grey had reached his wrist now, moving with the certainty of roots. They found his camera 3 weeks later. Bah Kinma found it. He'd gone looking not because he thought Daniel could be saved, but because he believed every story deserved a witness. The camera was propped upright against the base of the tallest stone, the cracked lens still aimed at the clearing, the red light finally dark. The footage ends mid-sentence. There is no body. There is only a new stone in the clearing, smaller than the others, grey and mossy, and somehow settled, as if it had always been there, as if the forest had simply grown around it. The elders say it happens sometimes. A person comes with too much noise in them, too much certainty, too much laughter, aimed at things they cannot see, and the stones grow tired of waiting. They don't kill you, the elders say. They just make you permanent. Most travelers come to Maubena and see history. They see stone, but if you come here in the early morning, when the mist is still thick between the trees and the birds haven't yet decided it's safe to speak, count the stones. Count them carefully and ask yourself if that number was always the same.